Get ready for Tennessee's next game on the hardwood with our Vols matchup breakdown. We preview the Vols opponent and give you Tennessee's keys to victory here on Vol Basketball Fever. Hello everyone, and welcome in to another Vols basketball matchup breakdown video. I'm Nathanael Rutherford here with Vol Basketball Fever, giving you another breakdown of Tennessee's opponent on the hardwood in men's basketball. Thank you all so much for clicking on this video. Give it a like while you're here, subscribe to our channel while you're here as well, and check out our podcast. It's the Vol Basketball Fever podcast and the Lady Vol Basketball Fever podcast. We're on YouTube and do video podcasting, or you can find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, everywhere else you get your podcast. You can find us there. Share with a Vol fan, share with a friend, a family member, or just a college basketball fan in general. Or if you know any Mississippi State fans, let them know about this video and see what they think about the Tennessee-Mississippi State game coming up on Wednesday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, tip-off in Starkville. Not a big fan of the super late tip-off games, but I guess it is what it is. Sometimes you got to take it, and sometimes you're lucky and get a 7 o'clock tip-off in a midweek game. But we'll see how it goes for Tennessee on the road. First of all, the big news for Tennessee this week, coming off the South Carolina game on Saturday, is that Tennessee is now going to be without Olivier Nkamhoua for this game and likely for the remainder of the season. He hurt his ankle and his foot, I guess, against South Carolina on Saturday and is going to require surgery, and he's out likely for the remainder of the year. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how much Tennessee plays small ball in this game and moving forward, but particularly in this one because Mississippi State likes to play a few bigs. They have three guys who measure at 6'9" or taller, and they also have 6'7" DJ Jeffries, who plays a lot too. So they have a lot of length and height. So this one will be interesting to see. Does Tennessee play more of a three guard with Josiah Jordan-James at the 4, or does this mean that we see more Brandon Huntley-Hatfield potentially to spell kind of Uroshin and John Fulkerson as well? That's going to be interesting. We'll kind of get a first taste of that in this game too. Does it mean Justin Powell starts? Does it mean we see Victor Bailey Jr. more? Or does Jemai Mashack take those minutes? How does Tennessee's rotation change? And do any of these players step up and get more minutes now that Olivier Nkamhoua is out? What was your rotation on an already thin front court for Tennessee, an already inconsistent front court for Tennessee as well? But looking at Mississippi State, it's never easy winning in Starkville, playing at the Hump in the Humphrey Coliseum. This season, Mississippi State is 12-1 at home, and they're 5-0 in SEC play, beating Arkansas, Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina at home. So again, not a murderer's row, but some pretty good teams there, especially playing Arkansas and Bama and beating them at home for Mississippi State. According to the Kim Pomeroy rankings, Mississippi State ranks 20th in the country in home court advantage, which is also tops in the SEC. That kind of takes into account, the discrepancy in fouls, point differential, and I think a few other factors as well. And looks at like the last 60 games played in that home coliseum or home, arena for a basketball team. So Mississippi State has the 20th best home court advantage in the country, according to Kim Pom, and number 1 in the SEC. So Tennessee's not going to have an easy win in this one. They're not playing against South Carolina on the road or Vanderbilt on the road. They're playing in a really tough road environment against the Bulldogs. As a team, the Bulldogs started out strong this year, but they've struggled to be better than 500 lately. In fact, they're under 500 over their last 9 games. Mississippi State began the year 10-3, but they've gone just 4-5 since then, with all 5 of those losses coming on the road to SEC teams and Texas Tech. So they haven't lost at home recently, but they're 4-5, and all 5 of those have come on the road. Again, Tennessee's playing in Starkville. That is worth noting. Mississippi State didn't play the worst non-conference schedule out there, but it wasn't super enticing. And the Texas Tech one that, here mid-season also kind of buoys that a little bit. They had non-conference losses against Louisville, Minnesota, Colorado State, and Texas Tech, with notable wins over some good mid-major teams like Richmond and Furman, but not really any big high-major victories aside from SEC play either. So they've played a pretty decent schedule, but not really any big wins, especially outside of the SEC, to really hang their hat on. Tennessee will be the 4th team inside the KenPom top 20 that Mississippi State has faced this year, and the 3rd such team in the last 4 games. So this will be the 3rd of the last 4 games where they've played a team ranked inside the top 20 on KenPom. Mississippi State is just 1-2 against the top 20 teams this season, beating Alabama, who's ranked 19th, 78-76 at home, losing 82-74 in overtime on the road against Kentucky, who's currently ranked number 2 on KenPom, and then losing 76-50 on the road against Texas Tech most recently in the Big 12 SEC Challenge, and Texas Tech is ranked 10th. So Tennessee in the top 15, again, top 20 also, but it's the fourth time that Mississippi State's faced a team like that this year, and they have struggled mightily against those types of teams for the most part. Again, beating Alabama at home, and again, they've been a lot better at home and historically are a really good team at home. It's been where they've struggled the most on the road and in neutral site games. Mississippi State boasts a really efficient, really good interior offense, but a pretty bad three-point shooting offense. The Bulldogs are number one in the SEC in field goal percentage in SEC play at 47% and ranked third in their two-point field goal percentage at 54%. But that two-point percentage really helps them out a lot because they've only made 27.5% of their threes in the SEC play, which is the second worst in league play this season. They also attempt the fewest threes per game in SEC play this year, averaging just 15.3 attempts from three a game. So they don't shoot the ball a lot from three, and they don't make a lot when they do shoot them. So they're probably smart to not do that. Mississippi State's offense ranks 28th on KenPom in offensive efficiency, with a 2-point field goal percentage ranking of 53rd in the country. Over 57% of Mississippi State's points this season have come on made 2-point field goals, which is the 28th highest percentage in the country. So they are top end when it comes to, their mid-range and interior game, but not so much the three-pointers. Only 22.6% of their points this year have come from threes, which is in the bottom 15 in the country. So again, they don't attempt a lot of threes, and they don't make a lot of threes. So their points are not coming from threes. The Bulldogs also do love to get to the free throw line. They average the second most free throw attempts per game in SEC play at 22.7, and they make the third most per game at 16.2 against SEC teams. Over 20% of Mississippi State's points this season have come from the free throw line, which ranks inside the top 60 in the country. And in fact, when the state has gotten to the free throw line 23 or more times this season, they are 8-2. On the flip side, 4 of State's 8 losses this season have come when they failed to shoot at least 20 free throws in a game. So getting to the free throw line is very important for the Bulldogs' success, especially on offense. And another way that they've found success on offense is through second chance points. They have one of the highest offensive rebound rates in the country at 34.7%, which ranks 20th in all of college basketball. They have 4 players with an offensive rebounding percentage of 9% or better this season, of the guys who kind of play in the main rotation and get enough minutes to basically qualify for it, in my opinion. For comparison, Tennessee just has 3 players who does that, and one of those is Brandon Huntley Hatfield, who usually plays more sparingly, though I imagine, again, he's probably going to get more opportunity moving forward. Mississippi State isn't just a good offensive rebounding team. They're actually a good rebounding team in general, averaging the 5th most rebounds per game in SEC play. And they also allow the fewest rebounds per game in SEC play at just under 32 a game to opponents. So they're really good at grabbing misses from both themselves and from opponents, and don't allow other teams to grab a whole lot of defensive rebounds and just rebounds in general. Iverson Molinar has very much been playing like another Iverson in basketball you might think of. In SEC play, he's averaging 20.6 points per game, which I haven't looked it up, but I imagine that is tops in the SEC. And he is also chipping in 3.6 rebounds, 3.6 assists, and 1.6 steals per game, all while shooting at a 54% clip and 87.8% from the free throw line in SEC play. So he's been a phenomenal scorer for Mississippi State in SEC play, particularly. He's averaging over 18 points a game just in the entire year, but again, over 20.5 points per game in SEC play. His three-point shooting has actually dropped off significantly from his first 2 years at Mississippi State, but he's making almost 57% of his twos, so he's making up for it in other ways. He's also making almost 90% of his free throws on the entire year as well. So again, he's just been efficient from every other area besides three-point shooting. He scored 20-plus points in 7 games this season, and he has scored in double figures every single game he's played. So expect to see him to get at least 10, 11 points, and probably closer to 20 when Tennessee plays him. Can he get more help is kind of the thing. Is he the only one scoring a whole lot for Mississippi State? Generally, that hasn't been the case because State's usually been a pretty good offensive team. Helping out Molinar are UNC transfer Garrison Brooks, Tolu Smith, NC State transfer Shaquille Moore, and Memphis transfer DJ Jeffries, with Michigan State transfer Rocket Watts and sophomore forward Cameron Matthews providing help off the bench. So that, again, a lot of transfers from Mississippi State and a lot of pretty good offensive players for State as well. Speaking of Tolu Smith, he recently has returned from injury and played against Arkansas. He missed a few games there, and he's missed a lot of games this season. He's only played in 9 games, but he started all 9 that he's played, and it's averaging the second most points per game on the team at 12.9, and is tied in the team lead at rebounds per game at 6.6 and overall in the season. And then Garrison Brooks leads the team in rebounding at 7 per game in SEC play. But Tolu Smith's been really effective when he's been in there. So unfortunately for Tennessee, he is back playing and in the starting lineup, expected to play against Tennessee. So it's another, again, it's a 6'10 guy who Tennessee doesn't really have a whole lot of answers for right now. So that's where I'm going to watch and see where Tennessee, does on the interior in this game. Can Tennessee able to do enough offensively from the perimeter, and defensively, can Josiah Jordan-James match up with a guy who he's going to be matched up with as either a 6'9 or 6'10 player? He's going to be oversized. Can he match up well defensively with those guys? Shaquille Moore is really the only good three-point shooter for Mississippi State this year. He's really the only player making over 30% of his threes in SEC play, especially connecting on 37.8% of his threes, which is a really good percentage. But again, no one else is making over 30%, so he's the only guy doing it. The next best is Rocket Watts, who's making just 28.6% of his threes against league teams. In fact, this year, bad three-point shooting has been a consistent theme in Mississippi State's losses, as all 8 of their losses this year have come when they've made fewer than 32% of their threes as a team. They're just 4-8 this season when making less than 32% of their threes, but are undefeated at a 10-0 mark when making at least 33% of their three-pointers. So Tennessee, if they can keep them around that 30% mark or so, they stand a lot better chance of winning this game. Because again, State's not been great at shooting threes, and particularly in SEC play, their woes really started when they got into conference play, because they made 36% of their threes as a team in the first 12 games of the year, and again, in non-conference play. But over the last 10, it includes SEC teams against Texas Tech, just 27.3%. So 36% in non-conference play before SEC play, getting into conference play, 27.3. That's a huge difference, a 9% difference for the team on three-point shooting. Defensively, State's not great, but they aren't the worst team to see defensively either. They average a little more than 8 steals a game in SEC play, which is the 5th most, and they pretty much always out-rebound their opponents as well. But they are allowing almost 72 points per game in SEC play, which is in the bottom half, and they force the 4th fewest turnovers per game in conference play, making teams give up the ball just 13.3 times a game. Tennessee's been really good this year when they've not had a lot of turnovers. So if Tennessee limits turnovers and State's not forcing a whole lot, Tennessee got to, they got to feel good about how they're playing at that point, most likely. State's not been good about shooting threes on offense. They've also been really bad about giving up threes this year, particularly in SEC play. SEC foes are making just over 7 threes a game against State, which is the 4th most in conference play, and they're making 32.5% of those threes, which is in the bottom half of SEC defenses. Almost 36% of opponents' points this season against the Bulldogs have come on made three-pointers, which is one of the highest in the country. In fact, it's the 2nd highest percentage for all SEC teams. I think only LSU has had a higher percentage of opponent points coming from made threes. Tennessee hasn't been good at shooting threes on the road this year, but they did just go 14 of 27 from 3 on the road against South Carolina, against a pretty good defense there. Again, tougher road environment. I think a better overall team Mississippi State is. On the season, Tennessee is 13-1 when they make at least 29% of their threes, which isn't a high mark to get to. So they're 13-1 at 29% of their threes or more. And Mississippi State has allowed a team to reach that mark 14 times this season. So Tennessee actually 14 times they've had 29% or more. State has allowed teams to get that mark 14 times or more. In fact, Mississippi State is just 5-6 this season when a team shoots 31% or better against them. So if Tennessee can hit a lot of threes and make a good percentage of them, and as long as they hold Mississippi State to not shooting really well from 3, that's going to be the difference in this game, I think, is can Tennessee actually have some good three-point offense without having Nkamhoua, in there for the interior, because they're going to have to shoot a lot of threes, I think, in this game to win it. Part of the reason why the Bulldogs defense hasn't put up great numbers this year is because they've really faced some pretty strong offenses. Tennessee will be the 11th time this year that Mississippi State has played against a top 100 KenPom offense, and the 7th time they've played against a team in the top 50, in or around it, kind of the top, 55, whatever. I count teams around like 52, 53, basically in the top 50 on KenPom. State is just 4-6 this season against top 100 KenPom offenses. So Tennessee's a top 100, top 50 KenPom offense. State has not played very well against those types of teams this season. And conversely, they haven't faced too many elite defenses, though. They faced a lot of good offenses, not very many great defenses, not very many, especially that compared to Tennessee. When they have, they struggled. Tennessee will be the second best defense that State has faced this season per KenPom, with Texas Tech being the only one ranked higher on the defensive efficiency ratings there. State didn't face a defense ranked inside the top 100 on KenPom until they entered SEC play. And they are 4-4 against teams currently ranked in the top 100 on the KenPom defensive efficiency rating. And they are winless 0-2 against teams ranked in the top 15 on the KenPom, and Tennessee ranked in the top 10. So that's an interesting stat to kind of keep in mind there as well. This will be, for Tennessee, the sixth time that the Vols have faced an offense ranked inside the top 30 of KenPom, and the ninth time they faced one in or around kind of the top 50. 5 of Tennessee's 6 losses have come against teams currently ranked 52nd or better in KenPom, and UT is giving up an average of 72 points per game to those offenses. So again, State, pretty decent offense. They can score a lot of points. Tennessee, just 5 of their 6 losses this year have come against teams in that top 52. And State is around in the top 30, is kind of better than the top 30 there. And again, Tennessee's faced some pretty good offenses this year, and they've struggled when they've faced some really good offenses for the most part too. But UT's offense has been playing better lately, and Mississippi State's defense will be one of the lowest ranked defenses on KenPom the Vols have faced since entering SEC play and since their high major schedule really kind of ramped up when they played Arizona, because they played Arizona and then got into SEC play, played Texas. So they've played all high majors since kind of late December there. I think Mississippi State's around the 85 mark. In fact, this would be the worst defensive rated team Tennessee's faced since USC Upstate on December 14th. Now, Upstate was really bad. They're in the 300s, so it's not going to be that much, that bad for Tennessee playing State. But this will be the quote-unquote worst defense from a stat perspective, from an efficiency standpoint, that Tennessee has faced in a couple months at this point. So, a little ease up here on some of the defense. It's still good. I think, not a bad defense, but, better. They're not as good as some of the teams Tennessee's been facing recently, especially you look at the Texas, the South Carolina, the Kentucky, the LSU. So it's not as good as those teams, especially. When Tennessee has faced defenses ranked outside the top 70 on KenPom, they are undefeated, 8-0, and averaging 89.5 points per game against the 2 high major teams they've played, right between 75 and 100 on KenPom, which is UNC and Texas A&M. So North Carolina and A&M are the 2 teams, high majors, that Tennessee's faced that kind of are in the same ballpark for defenses in comparison to efficiency with State. And Tennessee scored 90 and 89 in those games and won pretty handily in those games too. As I mentioned earlier, Olivier Nkamhoua is out for Tennessee. It becomes more important for John Fulkerson and Uroš Plašek to step up in the post. Fulkerson's been on the bench for the last couple weeks, and since moving to the bench, he's only averaging 18 minutes a game. But he did play 23 against South Carolina on Saturday, which is the most since January 11th, when the Vols last played South Carolina. He had 28 minutes, so he likes to play a lot of minutes against the Gamecocks, apparently. But I'd be interested to see. I think his minutes will probably uptick a little bit, too, especially now with Nkamhoua out. Does he start averaging more around that 20 to 23 minute mark, or does he kind of stay closer to 18 minutes? That'd be something kind of worth monitoring to watch. He's been shooting better off the bench here as well, as he's shooting 55% on field goals and 84.6% on free throws in his last 6 games coming off the bench, compared to when he was starting this year, 54.1% from field goals, which isn't a huge difference, but it is a difference, but only 69.4% from free throws when he was a starter. UT is now 5-1 this year since they've moved Uroš to the starting lineup and had Fulkerson come off the bench, which is very interesting to kind of see. It'll be interesting to see if Fulkerson gets a start against Mississippi State, if he starts in a couple of the games moving forward, especially against State when they have more post players than, say South Carolina did, for example, or some of these other teams since he's been playing recently. So we'll see if Fulkerson starts. If not, he still stay off the bench. Does he provide a spark off there? Because I think you'll see, with Powell, does Powell start at the 4, or does Jordan James start at the 4? What does Tennessee do there with that kind of 4 spot, along with Uroš, I think probably still starting at the 5? Speaking of Josiah, he's been phenomenal lately, as has Zakai Ziegler. Ziegler just won the SEC Freshman of the Week. Josiah Jordan James has kind of found a rhythm on offense. And in fact, these two, I think I mentioned this last video too, these two are kind of the big reason why Tennessee has had more success and been playing better recently. Over both of their last 8 games, both players are averaging basically 10.5 points. James is averaging basically 6 rebounds, almost 2 assists, a steal and a half per game, making 40% of his threes and 45% of his field goals. Whereas Ziegler averaging, again, 10.5 points, 2.5 boards, basically 2.5 assists, almost 2 steals per game. He's hitting over 40% of his threes, and he's hitting 91% of his free throws. These two players have been a big reason why Tennessee has been playing better lately. They're going to be needed moving forward, and then this Mississippi State game, along with Vescovy, along with James, has become a really important player for Tennessee. Already had been, but I mean, he is I think maybe Tennessee's most important player now with Olivier Nkamhoua out because of his versatility on defense, especially being able to play at undersized 4 for Tennessee. But that'll do it here for the preview for Tennessee Mississippi State. Again, leave a like on this video, subscribe while you're here. We really appreciate you guys, the support you've given us. Over 100 subscribers now, which again doesn't sound like much, but it means a lot to me and a lot to us here at Vol Basketball Fever. I'm Nathanael Rutherford. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been another Vol Basketball Fever matchup breakdown video.